Morning, gang. A little early for a second video already, huh? Well, got up this morning, kind of getting, normal cup of coffee and me getting ready to go to work, kind of seeing what happened in the world overnight. And apparently, what happened in the world overnight is a little worrisome. A few of you guys have asked me what's going on with Russia, Ukraine, and everything. And we've talked about Russia, Ukraine. We've talked about China, Taiwan. And apparently, things are heating up, not a good way, between Moscow and Kiev. So if you have been paying attention, anything of the sort, I mean, you've still got you've always had a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. This has been going on since 2014. So, there's 7 years into this, but things have really started escalating here, if you will. And I mean, in the last week, Moscow has moved about 4,000 troops into the border region there with Ukraine, with tanks, with missiles, with anti-aircraft, whole 9 yards there. So, you wonder. And then, of course, Moscow's saying this is just training exercises and whatever. It's humanitarian efforts. They're trying to help people. Except it doesn't have what you get into now is you have artillery shelling of Ukraine, all right, in the eastern Donbass region, all right. And just a couple of days ago, you had 4 Ukrainian soldiers killed and 2 injured from 82 millimeter mortars. I mean, now, those things are big, all right. We're not talking, tiny little things here. I mean, you're talking about good sized weapons, okay? So when you got mortars being used, automatic grenade launchers, large caliber machine guns and everything, this starts to get concerning, especially when they're, rolling tanks up to the border, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So while I was doing just checking on what was going on around the world, and obviously, as you know, Mrs. P is Russian, okay, reading some of the information that was coming out of Russia, all right, and there's an independent Russian military analyst by the name of Pavel Felgenhauer, all right. This is what scares the hell out of me, all right. He said that a European or even a world war could be triggered in the next 4 weeks in Ukraine, considering the troop buildups and everything like that. And this is a direct quote here, he says, "The threats are growing and rapidly. Much is not discussed in the media, but we are seeing very bad signs. The crisis has the potential to escalate into a pan-European war, if not even a world one." Now, for those of you who don't know, Ukraine is begging, borrowing, stealing anything they can to become part of NATO. All right. We all know what NATO was created for. It was after World War II. It was basically to keep the European countries separate from the communist countries. All right. And obviously Russia is no longer a communist nation, but it's still I don't know how to write socialist democracy, whatever you want to call their form of government at this point. But so you wonder, and then you've got 46 kind of fanning the flames here with what's going on. As I said earlier about sending 300 tons of weaponry to Ukraine since his inauguration. I mean, think about this, guys. It's April 8th, okay? So, he got inaugurated January 20th. So, let's think about this. You got February, March 20th. We're less than 90 days in. 300 tons of weaponry. Think about that for a second, all right? Now, then you get the interesting part yesterday is you had the U.S. flying a couple of B-1 bombers from, I believe it was North Dakota, all the way to the area, to the Black Sea area, and returned. It was, 12,000-mile round trip for these guys. And it was kind of interesting because last night when Mrs. P and I were out planting potatoes, I looked up and I pointed to her and I said, "Do you see that?" And there was a mid-air refueling going on right over our house. Now, it was high enough up that you could see the planes. I tried to get a picture of it, but I couldn't get my phone to zoom in that close to see anything, so it didn't work. Now, obviously, I'm in Tennessee, and if they're going to North Dakota, they're going over the Arctic Circle, but so that didn't have something to do with it. But I have never seen something like that over my house before. And like I said, a week or so back when I was making the tomato cages outside, there was a military plane low flying over the tree line right near me. So this is not normal, okay? So you start wondering what's going on. So, keep an eye on what's going on in Ukraine and everything, because the other thing I was reading this morning about this whole Russian thing is the ability of the Russian military, how it's been increased since 44, okay, has been president. And I mean, we all know 44 did anything he can to completely dismantle the military. So that was it. So, again, during the Cold War, and, go back to World War II, during World War II, during the Cold War, everything like that, the Russians won, or their mantra, I guess, if you will, was quantity. They just wear you out because they just kept coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. I mean, that's how they defeated Germany. I mean, Russia lost more soldiers, more people in World War II than any other country by a long shot. It was something like 25 million people, all right? And I think, and don't quote me on that number, I could be wrong. For some reason, that number's sticking in my head, but it could be because that population of Moscow, too. Numbers start all getting jumbled at the same time. But, you had massive loss of life for the Russians during World War II, yet they were still able to completely go into Berlin on the Eastern Front. They just outmanned the Germans. Well, during World War II, it was the whole same thing, is, tanks and helicopters and everything for the Cold War. They just massive military buildup. Well, that's not economically possible for the Russians anymore. So now they've adopted a, if you will, quality over quantity type stance. And the big thing that they have that we all need to worry about, and it's kind of funny that I just did the video on EMPs yesterday, is Russia has a couple of hypersonic missiles, okay, which can travel 6 times the speed of sound. So again, like I said, no warning for an EMP. Yeah, they've got 2 of these. 2 different kinds. They've got multiples of them. All right, the Avangard and the Kinzai. The Avangard is a nuclear-capable missile that supposedly can fly 20 times faster than the speed of sound, okay? And the first one of those came out in December of 2019. So if you start looking at it here, I talked about EMPs. There's stories that, Russia's kind of surrounding Canada right now with naval vessels and troops, everything of the sort. So pay attention, guys. This starts getting worrisome at this point. And, especially when you have, a respected military analyst, Russian, okay, who's saying that this could turn into a European war or a world war. And that's the last thing we need. But this is why this prepping is so freaking important. I know it's early, okay? I know this is not what you want to hear when you start in the morning, but, who knows when something like this happens, okay? You're not going, you know what, I'll do this over the weekend or something. No, this is what's going on now. So, all right. I'm going to keep a close eye on this today, and amongst everything else I need to do, if anything else comes out, obviously I will let you know. And of course, we're still watching China, Taiwan, and everything else. But as you can imagine, it's busy over here trying to figure this out. But just be aware, this is kind of some of the stuff that's going on in the world. All right, till later. Pinball out.